Okay, so the first couple of lines, again, we went over that example from the homework. We're looking down where we're going to fill in that blank. So we're going to look at linear equations. We've already looked at standard form. Now we're going to look at slope-intercept form. And it says right here that m is the slope. And then b, that's going to be the y-intercept. That's the y-coordinate of the point where the graph hits the y-axis. Yeah.
Would the equation be y equals mx plus b?
Yeah, I just said that a couple minutes ago when we were going over the homework. Yeah, so the equation for this one in the blank there is going to be y equals mx plus b. But again, the b is the y-intercept. That's the y-coordinate of the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. All right, so then we're going to start out by graphing some of these. So it has some directions there. It says first plot the y-intercept. So we're gonna put b on the y-axis, and then it says use the slope to graph another point, and then 3 you're gonna connect the points and draw arrows. Okay. So let's try this first one. So what's my b on example 1 here?
4.
My b is 4, okay? So again, this is, that's my y-intercept. So that's where the graph hits. That's where it hits the y-axis. Okay, so then that's a positive 4. So we know our graph is going to hit the y-axis at positive 4. So it's going to be right here. And then to get our next point, we're going to use the slope. So the slope was given as negative. No, again, I should say this. If it's negative of 2/5, where do I want to put that negative?
On top.
Yeah, on top in the numerator. So I want to make it negative 2 over 5. Now that top number tells you how far you go up or down. Remember, because the top, the numerator of the slope, that's the change in y. So if it's a negative 2, do I go up or down?
Down.
Yep. So this tells you that you go down 2. And then that bottom number, if you always put the negative in the top, that denominator will tell you how far you go to the right. So you go right 5. And that's from this point. Not at 0, 0. It's from your y-intercept of 4. So you start right there, and we got to go down 2, right 5. Let's see. So if we go down 2, it's going to be like here, and then right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's our second point. Okay, so graph the y-intercept first, then use your slope to find your next point. Then disconnect the point. You probably want to use rulers today. You can see I kind of missed right there. And put arrows on it. You guys good so far? All right, so then starting with example 2, they want us to just write the linear equation in slope-intercept form. So all we got to do is plug in the slope and the y-intercept. So for example number 2 here, we know our equation is in the form y equals mx plus b. And then the two things we need to write the equation is we need the slope and we need the y-intercept. We just need those two things. So we just plug them in. So just plug in the 1/4 for the m. That's the slope. And then plug in the positive 4 for the b right there. And then after you do that, that's it. That's your equation. So the equation on this one would be y equals 1/4 x, or 1/4 times x, plus your y-intercept, which is 4. That's all you got to do on that one. Same thing on the next one. So can somebody tell me, raise your hand so I can call on somebody. What would our equation be for number 3? Today, go ahead. Say it again?
You said number 3, right?
Yeah. What's the slope?
Y equals -9
Good. -9
times x
times x, good.
and 5 over 4.
Yeah, plus -5 over 4, or you can just write minus 5 over 4. Now that one's got kind of a weird y-intercept. It would hit the y-axis, or the y-coordinate of the point where the graph hits the y-axis would be -5 over 4. If you divide 5 by 4, that'd be 1 1/4. So we don't have to graph this one, but just so you know, that would be the same thing as -1.25. It'd probably be easier to graph it like that. All right, so number 4 is the same thing, but this time we're going to read the slope and the y-intercept off of the graph itself. And then we're going to write the equation. So kind of backwards from what we did with that first example. So let's look at these two. All right, so the first thing I need is the y-intercept. Let's get the b first here. So I'll write it down here. So b equals. So that's the y-coordinate of the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. So who's got that? Sid?
2.
Better count again. You're close.
3.
3, yeah. Yeah, your x-axis is right here, right? So you got to go up 3. So if you're at 0, 0 here, you got to go up 1, up 2, up 3. So that is definitely at 3. So the b is 3. And then the only other thing we need to write the equation is just the slope. So we need the slope, which is m. So we need m. So to find m, what you want to do is you want to look for two points where the point is right where the grid crosses. You know what I mean? Like you want to look for a point that's like right here where the grid crosses each other. You don't want a point that's floating out in the middle of one of these boxes, okay? So you want to use something like, what do we got we could use? We could use this point right here, and we could use this point right here. So we always want to get from the point on the left to the point on the right. So how would you do that on this one? How would you get from that point L to the point R? Logan?
Up 1, right 2.
Perfect. Yeah, you're going to go up 1 and then right 2. So up 1 and right 2. Well, that'll give you your slope right there, right? So your slope is going to be up 1, right 2. So it'll look like that. Again, it's a +1 over a +2. So again, this would tell you that you went, the numerator, that always tells you that's the change in y. So that tells you if you go up or down. Since it's positive, you go up. So that would be up 1. And then your denominator will tell you how far you go to the right. So that would be right 2. All right, but we should be able to write the equation now. So if we want to write this equation, we've got y equals, and again, all we need is we just need the slope. We just need the slope and the y-intercept. That's all we need is those two things. So we just plug them in. So we got y equals the slope, which was, Logan said was 1/2. And then plus the y-intercept, which in this case was a +3. So just plus 3. I don't know what my issue is here, plus 3. That's your answer. Any questions on that one? All right, now number 5 is probably the trickiest one on the whole thing. All right, we need two things in order to write this equation. We need the slope, which is m, and we need the y-intercept, which is b. Well, they give us m. We have that part. But then the other part that they gave us is they gave us the coordinates of a point on the line. So that means that this is x, that's our x-coordinate, and this is y. Well, that point, x comma y, that's on the line, so that has to satisfy the equation of the line. So what we can do is, again, we've got We've got y equals mx plus b. And what we got to do is we got to find b, or solve for b. Well, what you can do then is you can take the slope and you can plug that in right there. But then you have x and y, so then you can take the x and you can plug that in right there. And then you can take the y, which is the 4 right here. You can take that one and you can plug it in right there. Hold on, let me undo that. So I'm going to plug that in right there. All right, so just plug in the x, plug in the y, and plug in the slope. So if we do that, that would look like the y is 4, and that would have to equal the slope, which was 2, times the x coordinate of that point on the line, which would be a 3, and then plus b. So that'll give us 4 equals 2 times 3 is 6 plus b. And then how do we finish solving for b? We got 4 equals 6 plus b.
Subtract 6.
Good. So subtract 6 on both sides. And we get negative 2 equals, 4 minus 6 is negative 2. So we get negative 2 equals b. And then, now after you did that, you found b, you still got to write your equation when you're done. So we have to write the final equation. The final equation would be y equals the slope, which was 2, times x, plus the b. Well, plus the negative 2 is the same thing as just saying minus 2. There you go. So again, that's probably the trickiest one that you have to do today, is one like that. So plug in the x, plug in the y, plug in the m, and solve for b. All right, now I think these next 3 are just graphing ones. So we already graphed that example 1, right? So let's graph example 6 here. All right, so somebody tell me on number 6, what's my slope? Tom?
3.
Yeah, it's 3. It's the number out in front of x, right? The slope is the number out in front of x. It's the coefficient of x. So that's a 3 over 1, right? And what's the b on this one? What's that? What kind of 1? Yeah, it's a negative 1, right? It says minus 1, so that's a negative 1. And of course, this positive 3, that tells you to go where? Yep, that's up 3. The top number always tells you if you go up or down. Since it's positive, you go up. And then the bottom number tells you how far you go to the right. Okay, so we know our y-intercept, b, is at negative 1. So that's the y-coordinate where the graph crosses the y-axis. So that is going to be right here. That's at negative 1. And then from that point, not from 0, 0, but from this point right here, now you use the slope to find the next point. So we want to go up 3, right 1. So we're going to go up 3. So 1, 2, 3, right 1. So there's our second point. And then we're going to graph our line. Now, if you guys can draw pretty straight, you guys can, freehand this. But if you cannot, please use the graph paper and the rulers. I have graph paper up in that tray in the front, and I've got rulers over there on that black table. So this one's going to look something like this. All right, there's the first one. Now the second one, we got to, number 7, we have to read off the slope and the y-intercept again. But what do we got to do first?
Solve for 1.
Good, yeah. So we want to solve for y. Notice if we're going to write, we want this in the form y equals mx plus b, right? Well, that means you got to solve it for y. Because over here on this left-hand, on the left-hand side, I just have one y, right? So you have to get y all by itself. So how do we do that in this one? On number 7. how would you get this y right here all by itself? Somehow we got to get rid of this, we got to get rid of this 2 here, and we got to get rid of this plus 3x. Ethan, what do you got?
Minus 3x.
Good. Yeah, you want to subtract 3x on both sides. So subtract 3x on the left side, and then subtract 3x on the right side. All right, these will cancel out on the left side. So now we got 2y equals. Now I could write that as 6 minus 3x on the right-hand side, but if you notice this form here, it always has mx plus b, so it has the x term first. So instead of writing 6 minus 3x, I'm going to write a negative 3x. And then that's a positive 6, so I'm going to write plus 6. Now how do I finish solving for y? I got to get rid of this 2 right here. I want that left-hand side to be 1y. DeJuan, what do you got? Well, that's 2 times y, so what do I got to do? Yeah, divide by 2. Yeah, you always got to do the opposite. So we're going to divide the left side by 2. And then we got to divide the entire right-hand side by 2. Now, I've just been writing this all year. I've just been doing this, right? The right-hand side divided by 2. But I want you to start doing this now that we're in this section. You have to divide this term by 2, and you have to divide that term by 2. So these 2's on the left will make 1, right? They'll cancel out and make a 1. So then now you got y equals negative 3 over 2 times x plus, what's 6 divided by 2? That's a 3, good. All right, so now you can see your slope and your y-intercept. Here, I'll come over here so you can see. So on this one now, your slope is going to be, well, somebody tell me, what's the slope? Who's got the slope for me on this one? Adrian, you got it? Yeah, it's negative 3 over 2. It's the number out in front of x. So the slope is negative 3 over 2. So now again, that's going to tell you to go down 3, right? The top number tells you if you go up or down. Since it's negative, you go down. And then this bottom number is going to tell you to go right 2. And then what's our b on this one?
3.
Yeah, 3. Positive 3. So our b here, this is our y-intercept right here. So again, that's the y-coordinate of the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. So we know our graph is going to cross the y-axis at 3. So that's going to be, starting at 0, 0, that's going to be 1, 2, 3 right here. And then where do I go to find my next point? What's my slope? Where do I go, guys?
3 down, 2 right.
Yep, good. 3 down, 2 right. That's what I wrote right here, right? It's down 3, right 2. Not from 0, 0, from this point right here. So we got to go down 3, right 2. So we're going to go down 3, 1, 2, 3, right 2. So that puts us right there. Now, if you want to make your line nice and straight, you could go down 3, right 2 again. So from this point right here, I'm going to go down 3 more, and right 2 again, which puts me right here. And then I can draw my line a little bit more accurately. So it looks something like that. All right. Now this one, you know, they wanted you to write down the slope and write down the y-intercept. That's what the direction said. There's the slope. There's the y-intercept. I probably, if I was doing this one, I probably would have wrote it in standard form. So watch this. I probably would have wrote this as, I'm going to erase this in a second, 3x plus 2y equals 6. And when they're written in standard form, I like to do them this way. Remember this? I like to do them like that. Because then you plug 0 in for x, and you cover this up and you solve, what do you get? Adrian?
3.
3, yeah, you get y is 3. And then, hold on, I gotta undo this. So that was 3, right? And then I like to do this. Then if you plug in 0 for y, then you cover this up and solve that. What do you get? You got 3x equals 6. You guys, what do you get if you solve that? Yeah, what do you get, Dewan? You get 2. Yeah, so this would just be a 2 right here. Well, isn't that the points I have graphed there? 0, 3, that point right there, that's my y-intercept right there, right? And then 2, 0, that's my x-intercept, that's the point right here. So you get the same graph doing it that way. The only reason I did it the other way is because they wanted you to write down the slope and they wanted you to write down the y-intercept. So I did it the other way. But again, that's on the side. You didn't have to do that. I was just showing you that. If they're written in standard form, I like to do them with the intercepts. I think it's quicker. Okay, then we got this one, number 8. Now, we've already graphed ones like this before, like number 8. Does anybody remember what kind of line that is? We got y is equal to -4.
Horizontal.
Yeah, that's a horizontal line. Do you remember why? I think I did it like this with you guys before. Those ones I like to make the little table. So I made a table for this. And I told you guys, well, if y is equal to -4, if that's my equation, y equals -4, then the y value is always -4. So this would be -4, this would be -4, and that would be -4. Then I could pick whatever I want for the x values, right? So if I pick whatever I want for x values, let's say I pick 1, 2, and I don't know, -2. Let's plot those points. So 1, -4, that's right there. 2, -4, that's right there. And -2, -4, that's right there. And so you can see I get a horizontal line right down here at the bottom like this. Maybe I should have used a different color for that. Just so you guys can see it. It's this line right here. So it's a horizontal line down there at y equals -4. You guys good with that one? By the way, now, it wanted the slope and the y-intercept though, didn't it? That was part of the directions. So let's write those down for this real quick. So what's the slope of a horizontal line? That was on the quiz, wasn't it?
0.
Yeah, that was 0. Some people on the quiz, they wrote undefined. So the slope is 0 because it's a horizontal line. And then what's the y-intercept? What's the y-coordinate of the point where the graph crosses the y-axis?
-4.
Yeah, -4. Right, that's right here. That point right there. I guess I could do a different color on that. That point right there, that's the point 0, -4. All right, we only got one to go, right? So I think we got to flip the page here. All right, so we just got a story problem up here at the top. It's not much of a story problem because they already wrote the function for you. They already gave it to you. I'd like to point out that we've been writing these all along. We didn't know they were linear functions when we started doing this, and we didn't know that that was in slope-intercept form, but it is. Do you guys see that equation? It says f of g. Well, what's f of g mean? What's that stand for?
Function
Yeah.
of g.
Yeah, but it's also known as,
The y.
it's the same thing as y, right? So really what this thing looks like is this is just y equals 18, I'll call it x this time. 18x plus 200. All right, so we've been writing equations like that all along this year. We just didn't know they were linear functions in slope-intercept form. So in this case, the x here is the number of guests. The number of guests for, what are we doing? We're catering a party or something. So this is the number of guests. All right, and then the y here is the cost of the party or the cost of the catering. All right, so then all we gotta do is write down the slope and the y-intercept again. So who can tell me what's the slope of that one? Let's see, do I gotta wake somebody up? Is Aiden alive over there?
Yeah.
Aiden, what's the slope of that one?
Huh?
What's the slope of that one? I'll give you a hint. It's the number out in front of x.
18.
Oh, excellent. So the slope is 18 over 1. And then, Damien, what's the y-intercept? Yeah. Yeah, it's 200. So you paid $200 up in front, and then you got to pay $18 per guest. All right, and then the next part of the question says, what's the cost of catering 200 guests? So the cost is the y, right? So that's the cost. That's going to equal, well, where are you going to put the 200 in for? Yeah. Yeah, all this is telling you is that the x coordinate here is 200. So you just got to take the 200 and you got to plug it in right there for the x. So let me move this down a little bit. So we're going to get y, oops. We're going to get y equals 18 times 200. So it's $18 per guest for 200 guests, plus the $200 you had to pay up front. And again, the y here, finding here is the cost. All right. So what does that equal?